should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. This should be played at high volume. Preferably in a residential area.
The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour do not represent Cox Media Group or its sponsoring. Anything you hear may and will be used against you. Thank you. Voted as best local podcast in Tampa Bay by the Creative Loafing. You're listening to Hoppe Hour.
What up? What's happening? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and I'm pretty pumped about this next guest. He is the co-host of the Rizzuto Show every morning on 105.7 The Point in St. Louis. On the phone line is Jeff Burton. He is live on Hoppe Hour. What's up, dude?
How are you, man? Good to talk with you finally. Enough messages back and forth, and now we actually get to chat, right?
Hell yeah, dude. I've been listening to the show since it first began about 2 years ago, and I've told Rizz this on the show, too. Every part about it I like. I like how you guys do the news. I like your pump-up intro. You guys have one of the best shows on the radio right now.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, we work really, really hard to make it very conversational, and we just like to take the news, and I learned this from Rizz, to take the news and put it in a style like if you and I were just sitting talking about what was going on yesterday in the world or today in the world. The best way I can describe it, man, is we work really, really long hours to make it sound like it's just four dudes sitting around having a conversation and you're kind of eavesdropping on it. And I think that's how it turns out.
Yeah, I worked in a radio situation where everybody else did all the work, and then the host would come at 6 when the show begins. And I really respect how when I had Rizz on the show, he's talking about getting there at 3 in the morning. Like, what maniac does that? That's what I think makes the show gel so well, you know?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why the show is successful, is because he is a maniac, and he is a maniac about working his ass off. And, we talk all the time about you can't take your eye off the ball in this business, and you have to. Well, there's so many, there are so many people in radio that are lazy, that can walk in for a 6 o'clock show at 10 to 6 and start ripping and reading and trying to figure out what they want to talk about next while such and such song is on. That happens 0 out of 0 times on the Rizz Show. We just work really hard to be prepared. If you're prepared, you're going to be successful.
When did you guys realize that the show was getting good? Because it used to be the Woody and Rizzuto Show, and then Woody went to Los Angeles. When did you guys have full confidence in what you were doing when you guys had to do a show on your own,
Well, yeah. Well, I after I got let go from the show I was doing in the afternoons, Tony and I Tony Patrico and I kept in touch, and, because we were friends. And we started working together at a local minor league hockey team that was in town for a season. And I was doing the PA, and he was doing the guy in the crowd kind of stuff. So we hung out a bit and kept chatting, and he was keeping me posted on everything that was going on at the radio station, because I still had a ton of friends there and everything. I don't burn bridges. And when Woody decided he was going to take off, Tony got a hold of me, and he was like, hey, would you want to come in and give it a shot and just see if there's some sort of chemistry? And I'd already known Rizz, obviously, working with him for about 10 years prior to that. And then Moon as well, obviously, from being in local bands and whatnot. And honestly, it took 1 or 2 shows to realize that there was some really good chemistry there, and that we genuinely made each other laugh, and we all worked hard for each other, and all those cheesy-ass things that turned into success. I was just talking with Rizz today about how we can get pissed at each other, and we can yell and scream and open up our heart to each other, but then we know at the end of the day it's all about the job, and we can go out and have a drink and be friends, and that's so freaking key. It's ridiculous.
And that seems like it's very rare in radio. Right now, I work in promotion, so I'm not on a show. But I've seen in radio a lot where they're cool on air, but once the mic is off, they don't talk at all. And to me, that is not healthy. You don't have to be best friends, but when you can figure out a way to be friends, that's when it comes off really genuine for the listeners, Well,
I had I had one of those moments where you realize what's going on in your life a few years ago when I was doing that afternoon show that I was telling you about, and the guy that I was doing the show with, he and I were not friends. We were polar opposites in pretty much everything there was in life. And everybody always would say to me, we were number one in our day part, for several years in a row, and we did a mix of news and commentary in it, but we did play several songs an hour. And people would always say, man, it sounds like you two are really not friends. Are you guys faking that, or do you guys really like each other? And I said, no, we genuinely don't care for each other. But for the longest time, I stuck with the whole thing that, hey, you know, it works for the show because we're so opposite and we can say whatever we want to each other because I don't care if I upset him and that sort of thing. And then I got satellite radio and I was listening to Opie and Anthony, and those two were so good, and they actually liked each other, and they actually were genuinely laughing at each other. And I thought that's what is really important in a show, and that's what's going to be long-lasting in a show as well. And I think that's what we have with the four of us on the Rizzuto Show for sure.
Which is what I like, too, because you guys seem like a show that just does not take each other too seriously. It is a lot like Opie and Anthony. I just love the vibe of it seems like everybody's drinking a beer in the morning with their feet on the table just talking. That's what I love.
Our feet can't be on the table because there's too much food there from Patrico because he's the big fat guy, right? And my point in saying that is we all have a role, and it's funny to say the word role because it's really who we are. Like Patrico's the big, loud Italian ginger with the beard. I'm the old guy with the beard, and you know I've been around in radio for a gazillion years, and I'm the creepy guy, and I'm the guy who knows what actress has been topless in a movie, but I've never actually seen those movies. You know, I'm that guy. Moon is the beautiful man and the musician and the singer and the guy that all the girls want, and about 47% of the guys want as well. And you know, Rizz, he's Mr. Paranoid. You know, he's that guy. So we are all so different, and our roles are so different, but they're what we are in real life. And I think that's one of those things that's going to make the show last for a very, very long time.
Would you guys want to be syndicated in different markets? Because the way you guys set it up with how you have the news ready and the prep, I could see you guys being in multiple markets. Is that one of your plans?
Give me a pen and a piece of paper, and I'll sign it. I'm not doing this for a hobby. And if syndication is going to give me even more money, I'll do it. You know what I mean? And I think that's everybody's attitude, and you've got to have that attitude in radio too. As long as it's a right fit for you, why not go for it? I think the show is ready whenever the world is ready for it to be syndicated. And I don't mean that from an ego standpoint. I just mean for something like that to be successful, planets need to align. You can talk to people like Rover, with all due respect to Rover. Obviously, the man is hugely successful. But when you have stuff thrown at you like that, when he took over for so many Stern markets so early, it's not always going to work. And he'll be the first one to tell you he's still standing strong and doing fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But syndication too soon can be a death toll as well.
Do you think when Howard left radio that was kind of the downfall of radio, or can it get back up with what shows like you guys are doing? What is your take?
I think with somebody like Howard Stern leaving terrestrial radio and going to satellite can actually weed out a lot of people, because there are a lot of people that can just hitch their wagon to, well, this is how Stern did it. I'll just get on and be as obscene as I can and cause drama just to cause drama. Still work hard and everything, but you can't be that one or two trick pony. And I think it made people go, all right, we need to hire talented people. Howard Stern left a hole in the market, and we can just throw anybody there. And I don't mean St. Louis, I mean any market. You can just throw anything in there. And when you follow Howard Stern, come on. If you're not good and if you don't work hard, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb, because that's what that guy did, and that's what that guy does. He is successful because he works hard, or at least did, and I'm assuming he still does. So when somebody super talented leaves a market or leaves an industry like that, I think it exposes the people who may or may not should be there anyway.
What is the radio market of St. Louis like?
In what way? Do you mean like personality-wise or competition-wise?
Competition,
or all of those?
Listeners, everything overall. Is it a very competitive market? Do people get along? What's it like in St. Louis?
You know what? It's a large percentage of us get along, but there's also those handful of people, just like in any market and really in any industry, that are going to, try to stomp people out, as opposed to just going, hey, look, man, we're all here trying to chasing a dollar. We're all trying to make a paycheck. We're all trying to make a living. And I'm cool with another morning show in town and I can be friends with them, that's fine, as long as they take their piece of the pie. I'll take it. It's a lot, dude. It's a lot like playing professional sports. I know that I've been following you on Instagram, and I know you're excited about hockey right now, right?
I was excited about hockey until the Tampa Bay Lightning lost, but I was getting really into it, dude. It was insane.
Okay, so I'm assuming you're a sports guy. My whole point here is if you and I grew up together, let's say we've known each other since first grade, and then you go play for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I'm playing for the St. Louis Blues, I'm going to try to knock your freaking head off when we're on the ice, and you're going to try to knock my head off when we're on the ice. Same thing on the radio at work. I'm going to try to take every single listener away from you, but I'm going to do it in a fair way, and when I see you out somewhere, hey, let's shake hands, and we're both trying to make a living. So as far as the radio market here in St. Louis, I'd say 90% of the people in radio here are cool with each other. You're going to have that 10% that are just dicks, just to be dicks, and to try to one up people, and it's just not my lifestyle. As far as the listeners are concerned, I tell you what, the thing about St. Louis radio and the surrounding area is people love local morning shows. There's been so many syndicated shows that have come in and done. Bob and Tom had a foothold here for a very long time. Don't get me wrong, but there's been so many syndicated shows that don't make it because St. Louis people like to hear about what's going on Highway 40 by the person they're listening to, not just some local traffic cut-in thing. They like to hear the host, like Rizz, talk about how he and his wife and their kids went out to dinner at some local restaurant, and this funny or weird thing happened. St. Louis radio people like to hear about St. Louis.
Yeah, you guys come off very local, but in a non-annoying, hacky way where it makes me want to visit St. Louis again. Because if you listen to other local morning shows, it just comes off, here's the weather, here's the traffic. But you guys do a really good job of making it listenable for people that aren't in St. Louis. That's another good thing about your show.
Well, and I think all four of us grew up as fans of the radio. There are fans of the radio and there are fans of music. And not everybody that's a fan of music needs to be in radio, but everybody who's a fan of radio can be in radio. If you get my drift there,
yeah.
It's different. Let's put it this way: there are air personalities that can, because all they want to do is sit around and talk for a living. You can be on a country station and play country music and sit there and press buttons, or AC station or a pop station or whatever. But when you're talking about a true professional, when you're talking about somebody who really, really wants to do this for a living, you pick and choose just a little bit, and you play to your strengths, and you bend where you need to bend, don't get me wrong. But it all comes down to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this conversation, and that is giving a crap and putting in the hours to put a product out there that you're proud of.
Now, shows like Opie and Anthony and other shows from Chicago are the reason why I'm in radio. What made you want to go into it, Jeff?
The biggest thing that I can tell you is growing up here in St. Louis, there's a station called KC95. It's been around since 1967, which is the year I was born. And my dad was one of those rare parents that listened to music in the car, and he listened to either KC, which is a classic rock station, or he would listen to the blues, like Stevie Ray Vaughan and that kind of stuff. So my dad was one of those rare people who you want to ride with that parent because he wasn't listening to the old parents talk station. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would ride with my dad in his truck all the time, and I would stare at the radio. And because this was back when I thought the songs that were coming out of the radio, the actual bands were there at the radio station. And then I would stare at the radio when the guy was talking. I was like, God, he's got such a great voice. and I start picturing what he looked like. And then the Casey was up on a very, very exposed, very popular road at the time called Watson Road. And you could just go up there and park and walk up to the window and talk to the DJ. And there were stories where the DJ would turn around and people would start taking the records. That's how personal it was back then. And one of the coolest things that my dad ever passed down to me was, not the ability, but the desire to make people laugh. And then 2, he also loved exposing me to new music. And to me, those are two amazing reasons to get into radio. To play a song and have somebody call up and go, man, I dig that song. Who is the song by? What's the name of the song? Where can I find that? That's why I got into radio, to see somebody's face perk up and go, man, that was a really cool song. What's the name of that band? That was my, and you can't do that anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But back in the day, that was my desire, was to make people laugh, try to make people laugh, and to expose them to music that changed their mood.
So how did you get your foot in the door in the radio business?
That is I shouldn't say it could never be done again, but it's one of those stories from the 80s, because I got into radio in 87, I think it was. And I was living in St. Louis, and this girl that I was dating got a full-ride scholarship to Springfield, Missouri, the college down there. And she said she wasn't going to go down there. I'd already graduated from high school the year prior. I'm not going to go down there and use this full-ride scholarship, college for free, unless you come with me. And I said to myself, well, this is my chance to get into radio. We go to a smaller town. It's easier to get into radio, obviously. So I literally, dude, when I got to Springfield, I opened the white pages to the K's, where all the radio stations are, and closed my eyes and pointed at the radio station. Honest to God truth. The station I pointed at, I called and I said, hey, I want to learn about radio. Can I come in and hang out? I'm not going to be your intern. I'm not going to get you coffee and stuff, but can I come in and just check it out? And the guy was like, sure, yeah, whatever. And I walked in there and I hung out for 2 weeks, and somebody got fired or quit or something, and they gave me like a 2-3 hour shift a couple of times a week, and I just fell in love with it from there. And that's one of the reasons why anybody who ever wants help in this business, I will help them, because I know I got a huge break at first.
Do you ever listen to your old work and cringe, or were you decent right off the bat?
I can listen to old work of mine and cringe, and that old work can be only about 3 weeks old.
Really, dude?
Well, everybody's, I don't know about you, but you can be your own worst critic. Yeah, but no, yeah, absolutely. The stuff back in the day, some of the things that I said on the radio, the name that I had on the radio back in the day, it's just, years later, everything is cheesy. But when it's your voice, you're just like, oh, God, what was I thinking? What was I doing? How am I still in this damn business after I said something as cheesy or as dumb as that,
Did you ever try to be the shock jock? Because that's what I try to do, and I've just been doing it for like 4 years now. But I would say whore, slut, skank, bitch. And I had people, when I would send my work to them, they're like, you're decent at it, but you got to cut the shock jock crap. So now I just take it as a conversation. You know what I mean? Yeah,
absolutely. And, that's one of the things that we talked about earlier is that with the show the way it is now, Rizz is always making it, he's always made it a point where we don't need to say stuff just to cause drama. We don't need to say stuff just to be saying it. Just say what's in your heart. Therefore, you can always back it up. Don't make up a side or an opinion just to get people talking, or to get press, or to piss somebody off, to make better radio. Real life in and of itself is good enough radio, But to your point, when I got let go from the point in 2011 when they got rid of my afternoon show, the guy I was doing the show with and we did a podcast for a couple of years. And I don't know where you put your podcast up all over the place, but what we did was we just had our own website and threw it up there. And, our first show, we had like 87,000 downloads, and it got bigger from there. It tailed off and got big and all that kind of stuff. But my point is, when we had our own website, we threw a warning up, and we had there was no, holding back. We even called it uncensored and unapologetic, and we said whatever we wanted to say. But it's really weird that just because you can say it, you don't have to. So, to what you were asking, you if you can be a shock jock, go for it. But a lot of people are going to say, it's going to hold you back from certain sponsors. If you're just cussing along and saying sexual stuff all the time, and I'm not sure what I can and can't say. But if you get super, super graphic, McDonald's isn't going to want to advertise with you.
Yeah, it seems like sponsors at the end of the day are one of the most important factors. You know what I mean? That's who you want to keep happy.
Absolutely. That's why you work so hard. You work so hard to, because you love it. Don't get me wrong, and it kind of feels like that's what you're supposed to be doing for a living. But at the end of the day, you got to be able to sell it, especially if you're doing your own podcast and you're doing your own selling and everything. Don't make it even harder on yourself by bringing some, some show to McDonald's that's just profane as can be. Don't get me wrong, I love that, but the media buyer for McDonald's certainly isn't gonna.
So what was it like, Jeff, when you get cut from The Point in 2011, but then a few years later you're back on The Point in the morning? What's that moment like when you find out you're back?
It's fantastic for a bunch of different reasons. First of all, to be able to make my mortgage again, that's always a good thing. But a couple of other things that are really satisfactory about it is obviously everybody who was involved in, giving me the opportunity and then signing me onto the show, obviously kind of digs what I do, liked me as a person. But one of the bigger things, the pride things for me is that I didn't burn those bridges. Like Tommy Madden, my boss, has had to fire me twice, yet he still hires me. And after he fires me, if I see him out or he sees me out, we have a drink and we laugh and we have a good time. We know that it's business. And everybody in the building that I came back to, Rizz and Patrico and Moon and everything, it's a sense of satisfaction when everybody wants to be wanted, but it's a validation of how hard you work. And to me, there's no better validation than somebody wanting to work with you based on what you did in the past.
What's it like when you guys find out that you're number one in the ratings again? I asked Rizz this about a month ago when he was on again, and he said he just rolls his eyes and keeps doing a job because you could be in 9th place the next week. Is that how you view it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the funny thing is despite what anybody says or anybody listens on the show and forms their opinion, there's zero ego about being number one because it can get taken away so fast. They can bring in a huge, show of some sort that people are going to go check out of curiosity and whatnot. But the biggest thing is, I'm a good example of that. The afternoon show I was on for like 6 years, we were number one. But then somebody in the home office in a different city or a different state says, hey, we need to cut budget. Let's see who's making the most money. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, look at there. We just sliced off a whole bunch of salary off of our bottom line. They don't care. So to Rizz's point and to yours, yeah, man, you just stay so level-headed. You never get, I know it's cliche again, but you never get too up, you never get too down because therefore you don't have to fall too far and you don't have too far to go up either, emotionally speaking. We've never once gone, hey, Tommy, what are the ratings? Oh, you guys are number one. Well, duh, and turn around and walk away. Never once have we ever taken that for granted.
Now, since you guys put in so much prep and so many hours into the show, what is your key to not burning out? Do you do anything fun on the side?
Yeah, we definitely do things fun on the side. We all have families, obviously, that we go to, but also, we every once in a while we'll have just like a show, like field trip. We'll just,
that's cool.
Where it's just the four of us. It's no family, no friends or anything, and we'll just go do something. And it's not something cheesy like, hey, let's all go to a movie and get ice cream. Like last summer, we did a soccer game, the pro soccer team here in town, the St. Louis FC. We went to their game. We went to we went to the Blues game because it was an afternoon game. Then we went to the St. Louis FC game, which was an evening game. Then we went across the river to the grand opening of a gentleman's club called Country Rock Cabaret. We did that all in one day, and it was just the four of us going from place to place to place, and we had just a stupid good time. And as you know, it makes for great radio as well the next day because we talk about it.
Now, what are they like to hang out with? What is Moon, Rizzuto, Patrico like when they're drunk? What's everybody like when they're all boozed up?
Well, it's funny because they're exactly like they are on the show, only slurring and laughing a little bit more.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, and that's one of the great things about that. And I hate to be so damn serious, but I mean, what we are on the show is what we are when we're not on the show. And like Rizz will get a little bit happier. He'll get a little bit more touchy-feely, and I mean a little bit, not a whole bunch. But when he's buzzed up, he will actually tell you that he likes you every once in a while. It's kind of like the Sheldon from Big Bang Theory hug. You don't see it a whole lot. But when he compliments you, you take it, and you take it with a smile. You know what I'm saying? Patrico, just if you can imagine, it gets even louder and funnier. Moon, when he's drinking, he likes to mess with people. If you ever talk with him, ask him about his one drinking game. I don't want to give it away, but it's a pretty good one, and he gets people on it all the time. And he's the guy that's into the weird, the weird beers, the dark stuff, and I'm not a beer guy. I'm a whiskey guy, and I'm a martini guy. Rizz goes back and forth between the spirits and the beer. And, I mean, it's just like on the show. It's a really good mix, and it's a very healthy mix. And when we're out having drinks, we have a good time, man. We really, really do. And that's so important, going back to the fact that you're out having a good time with your friends, but you're also creating show prep for the next show, too, because you're going to talk about how Patrico, drank 74 beers in one night and only peed twice, something stupid like that.
What's the craziest thing that has happened when you guys have all gone out drinking?
When we've gone out drinking, what's the craziest thing that's happened? I'll tell you one of the, it isn't really a going out drinking story, but, out of the studio stuff that we have done. I don't know if you talked with Rizz about our real or fake contest and all the punishments that we've had to do with that. I mean, Patrico and I had to wear, little string bikinis and wash cars for a couple of hours for a local, police officer charity called Backstoppers, because we lost real or fake. So, and it's all video, and there's video and still pictures all over the web, all over our website of Tony and I, and Tony's about, 350 bills, wearing a bikini, and myself wearing a bikini in front of all these people at a local bar. And, oh, by the way, there's really hot, bikini girls standing next to us. So that's even more intimidating. And we're washing cars for charity, stuff like that we do when we go out is always a good time as well.
Well, dude, where do you want to see the show in 5 years? I know you said that you want to see it get syndicated because then you would sign some more money into the checking account. But
right.
Do you think it's possible to see the show get syndicated to different markets?
Oh, gosh, is it possible? Yeah, I know the old show was real close to having it done, too. I think there was just honestly, some really small minor detail that kept it from happening. So if that show could get syndicated from whatever, if I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, I think this one should get syndicated, too, because the ratings are better than the old one, and that's not a knock on anybody who was on the old show. That goes back to me saying, hey, everybody can get a piece of the pie. I'm just answering your question, and what I'm saying is, yes, I think this show could be syndicated. In 5 years, if it's not, and I'm still doing the same thing I'm doing right now, I'm totally down with that as well, because I am having a great time, and I could not get up at 3 a.m. if I was not having a good time and respected the dudes that I was working with.
For people that aren't in St. Louis and they can't tune into 105.7 The Point, where can they find the show online?
Just 1057thepoint.com/Rizz. Or just 1057thepoint.com. That's all you got to do. Also, for people who want to watch the studios, we have a studio cam set up for each one of us, and we have a really cool chat room on YouTube, and you can get that through our website as well. Or you can just go to youtube.com and search 1057 or The Rizz Show, either way.
Well, dude, keep up the good work, man. It's been a lot of fun having you on the show, and I listen whenever I'm at the gym, so keep up the good work, Jeff.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate your help, and best of luck to you, man.
Sounds good. Have a good night, man.
You too. See you, buddy.
All right, bye. And that was Jeff Burton from the Rizzuto Show on 105.7 The Point in St. Louis, as he called into Hoppe Hour. Speaking of Hoppe Hour, this has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, saying peace out.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.